The turbulent years of the 1960s were plagued with hardship and turmoil, like the Vietnam War, the women's liberation and civil rights movements, and the assassination of national leaders like John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr. In 1969, things changed when a counterculture emerged.
500,000 young people can get together and have 3 days of fun and music, and have nothing but fun and music, and I God bless you for it.
The Woodstock Music and Arts Festival was a turning point in musical and cultural history by lifting our nation out of a struggling decade and emphasizing peace, love, and music.
Woodstock to me was about getting rid of all the bull that was happening with the right and the left, and saying no matter who you are, come to Woodstock and experience 3 days of peace, love, and music.
Artie Kornfeld, nicknamed the Father of Woodstock, was one of the 4 masterminds behind the 1969 Woodstock Festival. Artie was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1942 to parents Irving and Shirley Kornfeld. He was brought up in Levittown, New York, where he got his first guitar in 1956. Following his dreams, Kornfeld became a successful musician, composer, and producer. He was made the vice president of Capitol Records in the early 20s, and by 1966 he had already written 75 Billboard charted songs.
Michael Lang was born in Brooklyn, New York, into a Jewish family. Lang was also a successful producer, composer, and owned Sunshine Records. He was living in Florida before he moved back to New York, where he met Kornfeld. In New York, Lang moved in with Kornfeld and his family. In 1968, the year before, Lang had put on what had at the time been the largest festival ever in Miami, with an attendance of over 100,000 people.
Kornfeld first met Lang in a meeting where Michael Lang had claimed that they had grown up in the same neighborhood. Soon after, they became friends, and Lang moved in with Kornfeld and his family. The two started out with the initial dream of building a recording studio in Woodstock, New York. They were looking for help with expenses, which was answered when they saw an advertisement in the Wall Street Journal. Young men with unlimited capital. The advertisement was put out by Joel Rosenman and John P. Roberts, 2 business partners looking for something to invest in. John P. Roberts graduated from the University of Pennsylvania with a business degree. He also gained a lot of fortune from inheriting money from his family's drugstore. His partner, Joel Rosenman, had graduated from Yale Law School and worked in a New York law firm. Rosenman worked in writing and venture capital with his friend and partner, John P. Roberts. Roberts and Rosenman were the ones who came up with the first idea of an outdoor concert.
In the 1960s, straying from the norm was not widely accepted. The 60s was the age of youth, as children from the post-war baby boom were growing up and becoming teenagers and younger adults. This growing generation was moving away from the more traditional and conservative ways of the 1950s and starting to find their own identity and ways of life. Their new idea of living free and being what they want to be was not completely accepted by the older generations.
This group made up the majority of the massive crowd that attended the Woodstock Music and Arts Festival from August 15th to the 18th, 1969.
At first, Woodstock Ventures struggled to find a place to hold the festival when the actual town of Woodstock, New York would not be large enough to hold it. They were starting to become desperate when Elliot Tiber, a motel owner in Bethel, New York, introduced Lang to Max Yasgur, a dairy farmer with 600 acres of land. Yasgur offered his land for $50,000, and Lang accepted. The Bethel citizens, although were furious and tried to boycott Yasgur's dairy products, Yasgur keeps his offer, and a last-minute court hearing ends the boycotts. Max Yasgur becomes the savior of the Woodstock Festival. Unfortunately, Max Yasgur passed away a year and a half after the festival from a heart attack in Miami, Florida. He was 53 years old at the time. Rolling Stone magazine did a full-page obituary on him. Yasgur is one of the only non-musicians to receive an honor like this.
With 32 different bands and artists playing in a festival where music is a main emphasis, a large stage and a great sound system were essential. Bill Hanley, nicknamed the father of festival sound, engineered the amazing sound system at the 1969 Woodstock Festival. It was quoted that as the rain poured on Yasgur's green pastures, the only two things that worked consistently were the water supply and Hanley's custom-built sound system. The custom-built speakers and microphones that Hanley created won him the Parnelli Award for Audio Innovation. Once the huge stage and Hanley's custom sound system were ready for groups like Richie Havens, The Who, Joe Cocker, Canned Heat, Janis Joplin, Sha Na Na, and Jimi Hendrix, this 600-acre dairy farm was ready for three days of fun and music, and nothing but fun and music. One of the most memorable moments at Woodstock was when Jimi Hendrix played his own version of the Star-Spangled Banner on his guitar.
The original idea of this festival was to make money for Artie Kornfeld and Michael Lang. 186,000 tickets were sold before the actual festival began, so the estimated number of people that were assumed to attend were 200,000 people. 2 days before the festival, Lang and Kornfeld had a meeting trying to decide what they were going to do for admission into the concert. When almost double the amount of estimated people started showing up days before the first concert day, the two decided not to even put ticket booths. The crowds of people ceremonially tore down and made the concert free. Once word got out that the concert was free, there was an estimated 1 million people that packed up and made their way toward Bethel, New York.
The whole weekend was plagued with extreme hot weather and pouring rain. The rain turned the pastures of Yasgur's farm into a huge mudslide and bath. The weather was most of the reason that people left before Jimi Hendrix played in the last act. People traveled from all over the country to come to Woodstock. At this time, though, the maximum speed people could travel on the highways was 55 miles per hour, which made the trip very long for some people. Some would walk for miles just to come to the festival. Roads were so packed that it could take 8 hours to travel 98 miles from New York to Woodstock.
When the 3-day festival was over, Max Yasgur's dairy farm was a disaster. Around 80,000 sleeping bags and blankets were left on the property, among hundreds of thousands of other miscellaneous items. 4,062 checks were sent back to ticket holders who could not attend the festival, and Time magazine dedicated 80 pages to the whole event. Lang, Kornfeld, Roberts, and Rosenman all lost money and went into incredible debt. The four men did not make their money back until the documentary Woodstock made $100 million in 1999. Woodstock was a turning point in history because even during all the tough times in the 1960s, 500,000 people were able to gather together and enjoy 3 full days of peace, love, and music. These hundreds of thousands of people were able to all be in one place with minimal conflict and violence during a time where there was conflict and violence everywhere you looked. Woodstock laid the foundation for our generation, one where you were able to live a lifestyle with little fear of being judged. This cultural change from the 1950s to the early 70s was jump-started by the Woodstock Music and Arts Festival.
I don't need to fight to prove